every once in a while, things occur to me and they come to the forefront, and maybe it occurs to you sometimes. Does it ever appear that life just isn't fair? That sometimes really bad things happen to really good people? Well, that's been a question on the minds of people for a long time. Sometimes it's called the problem of suffering, or why do bad things happen to good people? Well, I can give you the short answer for 90% of this stuff, and it'd be the shortest sermon around. Turn to Matthew 5 and 45, the last half of the verse. Now, on your own, read verses 44 and 46 so that you get the entire context. But all we really need for this question is the last half, starting with the word for. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. God has created a world where things happen. The rain falls, the rain doesn't fall. The sun shines, the sun doesn't shine. So much of this world happens because it's the world. That's it. You tell me, well, why did that happen? Why did a person get this disease? Well, because he got the germ. The germ's out there. The sun shines on the good and bad. The rain falls. 90% of the things work because this world works. For good or bad, it works. Now that doesn't mean that God does not extend blessings to his people, because he does. But the fabric of the world is things work the way they're planned. But yes, God does put his hand in and does change things. But sometimes things are just bad. And God hasn't, it seems like, stuck his hand in. And that can really shake our faith. Now, I don't know about you, but I've known a few people who are professional one-uppers. You know, we all like to tell a story. If you tell a story, we'll tell a similar story. Sometimes our story isn't as good as yours. Sometimes it's better. But I think all of us have known that person who has done it better, done it more, and it doesn't matter what it is, they're going to one-up you. Well, when it comes to why do bad things happen to good people, good old brother Joe can one-up all of us. It doesn't matter what happens to you, how bad things are, you'll never find anybody who's had it worse than good old brother Joe. Now, the book of Job, for your information, is the strangest book in the Bible because it wasn't written to or about the Jewish people. Job was one of God's priests in the Gentile world in the patriarchal era. If you ever wonder why there's bits of things that seem like Christianity in all these different world religions, in the Egyptian religion, in the Norse religion, you see these little things that seem to parallel. That's because in the beginning, God had prophets and priests in every nation. Now, did they always preach all the truth? No. But did they leave that truth there and it has come down to us? Yes, they did. We know that because if you look in the Bible, you'll find Melchizedek. Not a Jew, but a priest of God. You'll find, and he's the good example. Give you a bad example. Balaam. He was a prophet of God who changed his prophecies for his own benefit. But he wasn't a Jew. So I like this because it helps remind us that God has, throughout the ages, told people the truth. They might not always want to believe it. They might want to dilute it. But they had it. Start with Job 1 through 6. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. It's a good man. Blameless and upright. Now, I'm going to skip over some of that because if I read every verse that I have down here, we'll be here till midnight, and Paul could get away with it because he was a great speaker. I can't. He had sheep, camels, oxen, donkeys, servants, and he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He had it all. He was the greatest man in all the East. Not just the richest, but the greatest. He had all the riches and all the goodness. He had everything. Now, his kids, we'll find in verse 4, they would go and they would have feasts in round robin to the various houses. And when the round of feast was over, Job, it says that in verse 5, and when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them. And he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. He cared about his family. And he did his best for their spiritual welfare. Now, pretty much you just have to say that Job had it all. Verse 13. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And there came a messenger to Job and said, the oxen were plowing, the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabeans fell upon them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. That's bad news. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." Heard it said, bad things come in threes. You know, I don't know about you, but I'd hate to lose my retirement. I hate to lose that, because that's my income. That's what I live on. Well, Job went from being Bill Gates to I have a couple servants and a house and no way of making a living. That's pretty bad. You know what I mean? That's pretty bad. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you." You know, we all know people that have had terrible things happen to them. Things that shouldn't happen. People that have endured things that they shouldn't have to endure. But very seldom do you have them occurring all at once. What a terrible, terrible tragedy. Not only did he lose his wealth, his way of making a living, he lost his children. What a terrible thing to happen. Verse 22 says, "In all this Job did not sin or charge God with wrong." Well, you're saying, well, how does this help me understand why bad things happen to good people? Well, we have to go back and look at some of the verses we didn't read. Back down to verse 6. "Now there was a day when the servants of God came to present themselves before the Lord," and I skipped one. Sorry about that. Go down here to Job, the 2nd chapter. I knew I'd do that. And I'm going to start reading in the middle of this one as well. We'll come back to that because that's the missing link. "And struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head." So after having all of that, and we find from the rest of the book that not only did he lose his health, get in pain, but his friends turned against him. He lost all of his reputation because everybody thought all this happened to him because he had to be evil. Lost his family, lost his wealth, lost his reputation, and lost his health. That's bad. Now we can go back and do it in the correct order. And go back here to Job, the first chapter. We'll start with verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." So the Lord went from the presence. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. That goes, "What are you doing here? What were you doing?" He said, "I'm doing my job. I was out there doing what I do." He's called two things. He's called the accuser, and he's called the adversary. But he can only accuse you if you do something wrong. But he's always the adversary. He's been out there causing all the trouble he can. And God looks at him square in the eye and says, "You consider Job? You're not doing your job very well. You're trying your best, but you can't get Job." Sometimes the reason good things happen, bad things happen to good people, is because they're good people. And Satan hates good people. And Satan knows that way too many people think of God as the eternal Santa Claus, who gives you good things and takes care of you, and you don't got to do nothing, and everything is wonderful, fine, peachy keen, and wonderful. And there's a whole lot of preachers that say that. Say, "Oh, you just love God, and He's going to give you all the things in the world. You're going to have all the money. Nothing's ever going to happen to you." I don't have to call him a liar. God did. Because I don't care how good you are and how much you listen to that preacher, you're not as good as Job was. I can guarantee you that God has never looked down and looked at Satan and said, "Have you seen that Les?" He might have, but he said, "Have you seen that Les? You're winning sometimes." But he's never said, "Oh, he's blameless, he's upright, he never does anything wrong." He may say, "Blessed is covered by the blood of the Lamb," and now he doesn't do anything wrong. But he doesn't look at you and me and say what he did about Job. And when you read the entire book, you know that Job was a better man than you or I. Satan attacks good people. But the thing is, every one of these times when things happen, God set a limit. He set a hedge. Satan was right. God had hedged him about, and he never took the hedge away. He lowered it, but he didn't take it away. Yes, bad things happen to good people, but God still has a hedge around them. Still has a protection. You know, it's sad that Job's children did not live to age 100 or whatever. Guess what, though? It doesn't matter whether you're 1 day old or 100 days old. You're going to die unless you're here when the Lord comes back. And it doesn't matter whether you have terrible pain or a little bit of pain. Everybody has pain. I want you to think about a phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it, and it is the ultimate phrase of despair. Life sucks, and then you die. Heard that? I want you to say that, but I want you to say it differently. I want you to say it the way Job did and the way Christians should. Life sucks. This true. And then you die. It's not the ultimate despair. The fact is, there's nothing that Satan can do that can truly hurt you. Because the worst he can do is send you back to your father. Send you back to where Jesus has been working for 2,000 years to get your place ready. I wish it was the way that some of the preachers say, that all you have to do is love God and nothing will ever go wrong. But I will tell you that if you love God and follow His will, nothing will harm your soul. And just like Moses, the pleasures of sin for a season are outweighed by what God has in store. And the reverse, the pain that Satan inflicts is far outweighed by the glory that awaits. Christians don't fear the great beyond. We're just waiting for our time to go home. I hope I stick around a long time. But you know what? God's been good to me, so it doesn't matter. Now, I'll admit, when I got cancer, so soon after meeting Debbie and marrying her, I had a problem. I said, Lord, if you had took me 2 years ago, I'd have said thank you. I've been waiting. Why now? Why now? Because Satan wants to shake your faith. Satan wants to shake your faith. When things are looking good, he wants to throw something at you to shake your faith. If Job could go through what he did, he doubted God. He didn't understand. But if he could do that, so can you. So can I. If anybody needs to answer the invitation in a